There we go. Okay. All right. So we're going to record this for those of you who are, or for those people who aren't able to make it today. But we usually have a pretty good group with our advisory board. First of all, I have to say thank you, thank you, thank you to our advisory board. Our program is required, for one thing, required to have feedback from advisory board members. We also are extremely grateful for the donated supplies that we receive, the feedback on everything that we do as far as policy changes, and definitely we wouldn't be able to do this program without you, especially those of you who are taking our students. You know, as an online program, clinical sites are extremely important to us. We try and do as much as we can with educating the students on laboratory skills through the online process, but without the hands-on experience, they're just not the same, in my opinion, and I'm sure that you probably feel the same way. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I can never say that enough. We greatly appreciate everything that you do for our program and for our students. So let's go ahead and get started. I have the agenda pulled up, but I'm not sure if you can see my screen. Let me see if I can do that. There we go. All right. So now you can see my screen, hopefully. And the first thing I wanted to do was to welcome everybody and introduce Chris Baker, who's our executive director. And Mr. Baker's on Zoom here. He's waving. Hope everybody can see that. And I don't believe Dr. Kotis is on yet, but hopefully she'll be joining us shortly. First order of business. I want to get a lot of our business details over with right away. We do have the minutes to approve from our fall advisory board meeting, and there is a little online poll here. There it is. So I think you should be able to vote to approve or not approve. Is it working okay? Looks like it. So we have a majority. If there is anyone who does not approve of the minutes, speak now or forever hold your tongue. I think we're good to go. Okay, so we're going to end that poll. Thank you. Whoops. All right. Minutes passed. So again, we have a MLT Facebook page. Feel free to send us any job postings that you might have. Anything that we can do, any news that we have will go on to that Facebook page. It is on Facebook as Barton Laboratory Education. So search us out. We do add some exciting things on there occasionally, including Lab Week coming up. There'll be some items posted on our Facebook page for that. So make sure you join us. And again, if you have a job posting, send it to me and we'll be more than happy to blast it out to students and put it on our Facebook page as well. Some feedback that we received from our fall meeting, we had a survey and only half of the co-op labs received lab guidelines from students. So we did add a program binder that was sent out to all new clinical sites when they join us. But again, if you would like a copy of all of those lab guidelines, we are updating them on a annual basis or as needed basis. So we can certainly send those out to you. All you have to do is let me know. The students are supposed to share those with you, but only half of them apparently are. The majority would approve a virtual co-op lab for microbiology, but would want longer clinical hours. There is another MLT program that is doing that. However, it's kind of a toss-up for us because we've also received feedback in the past that says students need to have the hands-on co-op lab hours before clinical sites will take them in clinical rotation. So again, we're kind of split on that. We're looking at different options, but we're not making any decisions on that at this time. We were split on 50-50 for advanced standing with co-op versus clinical hours, and we do have a poll later for that to address that. The facility should decide if it works for a student to do evening or weekend shifts, and so we've allowed that to go ahead and take place. It will be up to the facility if they feel like the student has a good experience to be able to do that. And then there's some comments in here as well. Feel free to read those. Everything's going to be included on an email that we'll send out to everyone after the meeting, along with the recording. So clinical and cooperative sites, the need for new graduates and employees. Are you fully staffed? Only one person or one clinical site on our survey answered yes. And I'm hoping that has improved a little bit between fall and now the spring clinical advisory board meeting, but I'm not really sure it has. So I would like some, if you could just shoot me an email or put in the chat how well staffed you are, that can kind of give us a better idea of how conditions are across the country, not just in Kansas. New business. So spring 2024 updates. We are still working towards the medical laboratory assistant certificate program. We do have, it's a long process. It's not anything that happens quickly, but we are working towards it. We are doing all the documentation. It's like more than this. Anyway, it's a lot. And so it is a process and we're still working on it. And those of you who have agreed to support the MLA program with taking on students or hiring students, I am going to need letters of support. I've had a few of you indicate that you would do that for us. And if you would just put in the chat, maybe if you would be willing to provide me a letter of support that I can turn in with our application to KBOR, that will go a long ways to getting the program approved with KBOR. We have added an enrollment by advisor policy for our MLT and phlebotomy classes. We are hoping that that will decrease the number of students who have to drop the first week because they've either overscheduled themselves. Everybody is always very confident that they can handle 40 hours of work plus 15 credit hours in a semester, which isn't always the case. And so we have students that end up dropping out the first week. And then we also have our compliance package issue. The Castle Branch account is a lot, but it's a very similar to an onboarding that students would have to do for being hired in a hospital. It just takes a lot to get it done. So we do require it to be done before they can do their first co-op lab. And that's another reason why we have students drop classes the first week. So we're just going to an advisor enrollment only policy so that we can kind of have a little bit more contact, I guess, in getting those students started correctly. The instructors for the MLT program and myself attended CLEC. It was great information for its Clinical Laboratory Educators Conference, and it is geared specifically for instructors of clinical laboratory science courses. It's like the best information for us to learn new procedures, new policies that we can implement, kind of network with other groups across the country. find out what other programs are doing. I had some great discussions with other program directors, learned some new techniques for online. There were I would say three main focuses for the conference this year. The first one was they are super, super big on career ladders in the hospital. So, what can we do to get those phlebotomy students to an MLS or MLT or MLS? What can we do to encourage them to become certified by offering, a bump up? Like if you're a phlebotomist, then you can take more classes and get more formal education and then become a medical laboratory assistant. And then you can take more classes and become more educated and become an MLT. So there's a lot of hospitals that are implementing a career ladder and for lab professionals specifically. And so that was a main focus. Another main focus was, of course, artificial intelligence. That's a big buzzword wherever you go. I did consider like making myself an AI person and a presentation. And I'm not there yet. But we do have a lot of students that are trying to kind of squeak by on their assignments by using AI. So there are some cons to it. It was also discussed that there are pros to having AI as an instructor, creating unique study tools, creating unique questions for exams, case studies, and such. So there are pros and cons. We just hope that everybody is using it in the correct manner. Another big move that we're seeing with programs across the country is online instruction. So previously, Kansas was the only, our Barton Community College in Kansas is the only MLT program that was really, implementing online instruction fully. MLS programs were still like, no, we're going to do the face-to-face thing. And there's really been a shift. So a lot of programs are now moving to a hybrid where they will have face-to-face labs and some courses, but they also have the online platform as well. Lots of advantages, and I think a trend is really moving to online. So, luckily we're already there and we're not feeling the pressure that some programs are to develop online courses. But it's good for us. So the other thing, I guess there was 4 main things, sorry, but we have another discussion later about creating a more consistent training experience or clinical experience across all clinical sites wherever students are located. So if we look just at Kansas, there's a huge difference in what clinical sites are and students in those sites are experiencing in everything west of Great Bend and then everything east of Great Bend. So of course your larger facilities are going to have completely different instrumentation. They're going to have different staffing needs and personnel in the laboratory. So what can we do to create a more consistent training or experience throughout all clinical sites? So that was a big push that they were talking about a lot at the CLEC conference as well. And we're going to kind of touch on that again later. Let's see, other updates. I'm so excited. We had our HOSA state conference this last week, and 2 of our MLT students placed first in their competitive events. We had 1 student competing in the clinical laboratory science event, and she placed first. And then the other student competed in the new phlebotomy event, and she placed first. And so I was really proud of both of them. And they have now qualified to go on to the international competition this June. So that's another little yay for us update. Program statistics. Last year, graduates, we had 20. The average pass rate for the 2023 graduates for the ASCP exam, of those who took the exam, we had a pass rate of 88%, which brought our 3-year average from 20, would have been 20, 21, 22 to a 78%, which is an increase from the year 2021, the graduate students from that year and then the year following. The ASCP scores kind of tanked, but it did that across the nation as well, probably due to, well, whatever. But it is going back up. And the one thing that we have done to increase our pass rates, or the one thing that I can pinpoint to increasing our pass rates, is the addition of the comprehensive exams in the clinical practicum. Again, touching on that later. We did have, last year we had 2 that were removed from the program for academic integrity issues, and 1 just couldn't make the pass the grades. So far this year, for the 23-24 school year, we've had 3 students removed for academic integrity issues. Nobody has not made the grade yet, and had to be removed from the program because of grades, but academic integrity might be becoming more of an issue as students try and use the AI, and it's a trend that we're seeing across every program in the college, not just the MLT program. So it's an issue, but we've got a committee and we're working on it, trying to find some solutions. Our anticipated graduating class at this time is 15 for May, which is a little bit lower than we had 20 last year. We'll have 15 this year. The good news is the majority of them are local, or at least Kansas students. So we've seen a decrease in numbers overall, and maybe an increase in numbers of local or Kansas-based students. So that's good news for us. So now I want to get to the meat of our meeting. We have a few discussions that I would like to get your feedback on. We're going to try and make some policy decisions this week to take place within the next couple of weeks before summer clinicals start. So feel free. I would love to have discussion. Take yourself off mute. We can discuss things, throw things out in the chat. But the first thing that I want to discuss, of course, is the MLA certificate program. I need letters of recommendation for the program. I've already touched on that. Cooperative hours. Last advisory board meeting, we discussed whether or not to offer advanced standing for either cooperative lab hours or clinical hours. The vote was to offer it for cooperative lab hours. Again, if you're new to our program, I hope I'm not throwing terms out to you that are unfamiliar, but the cooperative lab hours are the hours that the students do, minimum hours that they do each week while they are in the class. So for instance, the 4 hours a week that they do in hematology class in your facility. So cooperative lab hours, we're going to have a vote. If we offer advanced standing, which the advanced standing would give them, would waive those cooperative hours for them. And in order for us to be able to do that, they would need to have 1 full year of work experience before starting the courses. So for instance, if they want advanced standing for hematology, or chemistry, they need to have been working for 1 full year in a chemistry department in a full service laboratory before they started the class, the clinical chemistry class, which requires the co-op lab hours. I hope that makes sense. But they would need to have 1 full year of work experience And then they would have to have the lab documentation, like competency checkoff, CAP surveys, or whatever it is that you're doing in your lab to check off that they are competent in working in that area on their own. And then we would have the clinical hours still stay the same. So there's a yes or a no vote on that. Would you approve that advanced standing be permitted for co-op lab hours only? Still quite a few of you out there. If you can reply, we really do appreciate your feedback. Right now, it looks like that we are going to approve that. So I will work up a policy and get that out to everybody in the minutes. And I'm going to call that one good. Okay, so it looks like we have approved to allow advanced standing for cooperative lab hours. Thank you very much. Okay, so that was the first discussion. Second discussion, comprehensive exams in the clinical practicums. We, in 2021, because of the scores on the ASCP exams, we felt that students were not as prepared as they felt like they were when they were going to take the ASCP exams. Therefore, we added comprehensive exams for each department in our clinical practicums. The policy was that they would have 3 attempts to get a 70% on the exam. The exam questions all come from the ASC practice exams in Media Lab. So we know that they're relevant or similar to the questions that they're going to have on the ASCP exam. But our policy was that they get 3 attempts. With each attempt that they do not pass, there's remedial exercises to complete. So we'd have them say, hey, okay, on this exam, you missed several questions on anemias. So let's go back and do a review on anemias or leukemias or something like that. So they would have a remedial exam, then they could retake the exam. And then if they didn't pass again, they would have another remedial activity. So they had 3 attempts to pass with a 70%. And then if they did not pass the department, they had the option of repeating their, I guess it wasn't an option. The policy was that they would repeat their clinical hours and they would have one more final attempt on the exam. And then if they did not pass that, they failed the clinical practicum entirely. So we've had a little bit of pushback on that, which I totally agree on the reasoning for it. If the student is not passing a comprehensive exam for, let's say, clinical chemistry, but they've been through their clinical hours in chemistry and they've met their competencies on the checklist that we have, which is a skills checklist, do they need to actually repeat their clinical hours? Is that putting more of a burden on the clinical site, which I agree it is asking them to, I mean, you already had this student for, let's say, 100 hours in microbiology. They can't pass their comprehensive finals. Do we need to put them into another 100 hours of microbiology clinical rotation? Or is it a content issue? And do we need to do something different like that? Like our policy says if they can't pass the comprehensive final after the third attempt, then they fail that rotation. Other programs I visited with at CLEC, they have one attempt to pass a comprehensive final at the end of their rotation. And if they do not pass their comprehensive rotation, they're out of the program. Other programs, MLT and MLS programs, you have one large comprehensive exam at the end of your clinical rotations. Again, if you don't pass it, you're out of the program. Some are giving them a second or third option. As medical laboratory scientists, MLTs or MLSs that or above that you are, if you think back to your clinical rotations, for some of us, it's been a few years, but if you think back, how was it treated in your program? I feel like the policy that we have now is very fair. If if they're in clinical practicum rotation and they can't pass an exam with a 70% after 3 attempts and feedback and remedial assignments, then are they really prepared to be an MLT? So anyway, we have a couple of options. Option 1 is they get 3 attempts, they repeat their clinical hours, and then they have one final attempt. That's kind of that's the policy that we have now. Option 2 is they have 3 attempts, no repeat of clinical hours, and then they fail the clinical practicum and are dismissed from the MLT program. I think that would be the most severe option. Option number 3 is they have 3 attempts, no repeat of the clinical hours, fail the clinical practicum, but then we need to maybe repeat the course itself. For instance, if they fail the clinical chemistry comprehensive exam after 3 attempts, then maybe they need to repeat the chemistry course again. So there's another option. 3 attempts, no repeat of clinical hours, fail the clinical practicum, repeat the course, and then repeat the entire clinical practicum. So that's option number 3. So we have a survey again. There is also on here, you have the 3 options, but then question number 2 is other options that we need to discuss or consider. If there's any ideas that you have, there's a long answer, you can type them down in that. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes on this because there are a lot of things to consider, especially with the students who have already gotten their evaluation on their competency checkoff list is completed and they passed their skills. What do we need to do at that point if they can't pass their comprehensive exams? So the more feedback I can get on this one, the more I would really appreciate it, because this is a tough one for me. By the way, your polls are all anonymous. Any discussion? Anybody like to chat?
We need polling music like Jeopardy.
I know. I'll work on that for next time. I'm just getting the whole poll thing down.
Uh-huh.
This is definitely a difficult question to answer. So we'll give it another minute, and then if you, I mean, if we, I'm open to discussion too. If anybody wants to talk about this, I'm totally open to any options that are out there. I'm gonna leave this one up for just a minute. Move it out of the way there. We can definitely come back to that. The other policy.
Oh, I had a question.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I was muted, sorry.
Oh, no, that's great. I love discussions.
Can you explain what we're doing for option 2 again on here? Is that if we didn't like any of the top 3 options?
So option 1 is they get 3 attempts, they repeat their clinical hours, and then they get 1 final attempt at the exam.
Oh, no, I understand the 3 bullet points. I'm at question number 2. Other options
question
to
number
discuss
2.
competent.
So yeah, if there's if you have a different solution, or if you have anything that you feel like we need to discuss about before we make, any policy changes on this, please throw that into the question number 2 on the poll.
Okay.
And we can,
So
we can discuss it out loud here with everybody, which I'm 100% okay with that too. But if you are more comfortable putting it in the option number 2 or the question number 2 on the poll, please, however you can provide feedback.
So I like the 3 attempts,
but
I don't think the repeating hours should be mandatory. I think it should just be optional, and I didn't see an option for that.
Okay, so I would put that in question number 2 then.
Okay.
So as far as it being optional, would that be optional? Who would have the option of deciding that?
I think it would kind of be on just a case-by-case basis between the head of the course, the student, and the co-op lab. Like the 3 of them would have to get together and figure out, hey, does this person need to repeat their hours, or do they just need to have more study time before they take their last and final attempt?
Got it. That's another option that we could definitely discuss. Okay, so we've got about half of you, it looks like, that have thrown something in, a little more than half. So we'll move on. The next item for discussion is the clinical practicum hours. In the past, well, I would say in the past, pre-2021, summer of 2021, it was pretty much it's always been in our handbook and our clinical manuals that students are to complete clinical practicums on a full-time basis, 35 to 40 hours a week. However, we understand that the majority of our students are already working in a lab, probably full-time. Therefore, we would make arrangements to decrease those clinical hours. It also stated in our handbook and in our clinical manuals that students should make prior arrangements with their place of employment to make sure that they have scheduled clinicals time off when the time comes. So in the past couple of years, and I know I'm not going to blame it on COVID. This is just students in general. And I think the shortage of employees that we have out in the facilities, our students are working not just 40 hours a week. Some of them are working 60 hours a week. And then they have full-time clinical practicum hours scheduled, and that just doesn't work. And we understand that. So we encourage our students to and we have that discussion with them early in the program that when it comes time for clinicals, you know, you're going to have to make some plans to, you know, get PTO or vacation time, or make arrangements with your clinical preceptor that, or your employer, to have time off, so that it does not interfere with clinical hours. We've been, and I have to admit, I've been a little bit lax in the last year or two, because of the fact that our students, I know, are working 40 to, you know, maybe 60 hours a week. The challenge that we've been running into is that during the clinical practicums, there are students that, well, I have one student who did their entire clinical practicum in 3 weeks. They were working 12 7-hour days, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and they just like blew through it. That's the students who tend to approach clinical practicums in that way do not do well on the comprehensive exams. They do not do well in their ASCP exams. We have other students who, because, for instance, microbiology is so far away to find a clinical site. There right now we've got like maybe 3, maybe 4 clinical sites doing microbiology in the entire state, that they're having to drive maybe 2 hours one way to get to their clinical site for microbiology. So they were trying to do 1 10-hour day a week or 1 12-hour day a week. Again, to get a true experience in microbiology, it's very difficult to only do 1 day a week or like a Tuesday and a Friday. With microbiology, it's really important to get that follow through of your culture. Like, this is what I'm starting with, this was my sample, this is what I'm ending up with. And unless you're doing consecutive days in microbiology, it's difficult to do that. So there have been a lot of issues that we've had with students not being able to get time off to do their clinical rotations, not wanting to drive more than 1 day a week to a clinical site. And we've tried to accommodate them the best that we can. But we really have to draw a line somewhere. And right now, in 2021, the summer of 2021, we made the policy change that students were to do a minimum of 24 hours a week, which would be 3 8-hour days, or they could do 20 hours a week if they did like 5 mornings a week, you know, so they go in for like half a day and then work their job the other half of the day. Again, there's been, you know, I think no matter what we do, somebody's not going to be happy, but I just wanted to, you know, get some feedback from you. You're the clinical site, you're the one that has the students, you know, what you say is important to us, and we certainly, you know, respect any and all opinions that you have. I'm not saying that we can make any policy changes, but we definitely need to consider doing something. Definite. So next vote, here we go. Option number 1, require full-time clinical hours, 30 to 45 hours a week. This is the option that the other MLT programs and MLS programs require in the state, and most require across the country. Option number 2, require a minimum of 3 8-hour days or 20 hours a week and half days. That's the policy that we have right now. Option number 3 is no requirement per week. The total hours just need to be done by the end of the practicum.
No.
So, discussion and vote. Anybody want to discuss this?
That's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
I mean, really, for them to get the full, really, the 30 to 35 to 40 hours a week is what they should do to,
Yes.
you know, so that they get a good grasp of everything. But, you know, is that fair to somebody that's a single person and they're supporting themselves and they can't get their hours in at work?
Right. Yeah.
So-
And that's the issue that we've run into a couple of times. So, you know, and I totally agree with that. And that's why I feel like we have been more flexible than other programs in the state. And I think that's why people come to Barton, is because of that flexibility. So I don't want to not be flexible or not do things that students just can't be successful at. So, but we do have to, you know, we do have to have a policy. We're required to have the same clinical experience across the board for everybody, whether they're in Kansas, whether they're a single mom with kids that are supporting the family, or whether they're a full-time student and all they do is clinical hours. They're not working. You know, are they in Kansas? Are they in Alaska? Are they in, you know, Missouri or Texas or wherever they're at? We're required to have the same clinical experience for everyone. So we have to have something in place definite that says this is what we require. And we have had that in place. I just want to make sure that it's, because things have changed obviously in the last 5 years, 10 years. So I just want to make sure that we have something that will work for everybody across the board. We want to remain flexible, but we have to have a line in the sand, I guess, is what I'm asking for. So yeah, another tough one.
I do have a question. Is there a reason for the 35 to 40 hours for full time?
Because that's what most employers would consider a full-time employee. Like some employment is 32 hours as a full-time employee. So when we say full-time, we have to define that.
Yeah.
And the
Well,
best
I'm
way
wondering
to,
if I was just wondering if like maybe like 30 to 40, so it kind of combines them, but still does give them a little bit more hours that would help.
Mhm.
I don't know if 5 hours a week would make a difference for anyone, but
It seems to. And you know, right now our policy is 24 hours a week or above. 20, so it's really 24 to 40 hours. And you know, if we actually went up to the 30 hours a week, that would be requiring more than what we do now.
Karen, I'm sorry. I just wanted to get this straight. Is number 2 how it is currently, so they can do the half day option now? Or no?
Yes. So
Okay.
right now in our handbook and our manuals, it says students are, let me get the exact wording. Students are expected to complete full-time clinical hours, 35 to 40 hours a week. And then option 2 in the manual and the handbook, it says students are required to do a minimum of 3 8-hour days or 20 hours a week in half days, like mornings. So option 2 is actually the minimum that is required now, currently. since summer of 2021. Clinical hour minimums. All right, 15 out of 22. Like I said, I'm totally open to discussion, so feel free to put anything. If none of those fit for you, throw something in the chat or email me and we can definitely discuss this further. I'm not going to make any decisions today. So
Hey, Karen,
yes.
I hate to interrupt about this vote, but I was about to submit the last vote and it went off of my screen.
Oh, okay.
Can
Okay.
I still vote on that other one, or? I thought it was gonna be left up for a little bit and put off to the side, and I didn't make it in.
I think I can relaunch that other one.
Yeah, we
Sorry
could
about that.
definitely, no, we could definitely do that. I
Okay.
can only have one of them open at a time though.
I
So,
see. Okay, thank you.
but yeah, we'll definitely throw those up again. Okay, so I think I've given you some things to think about there. So we're going to take that one down. Then we've got more than 50% participated. So, our last discussion is one of the things that we talked about at CLEC was providing a consistent clinical experience across the board for everybody. And one of the things that they suggested was having a training course for our clinical preceptors. So we thought, well, maybe that's something that I have gotten in the past on feedback that says, well, we really don't know what the expectations for the clinical site is when we have a student come on. So I'm hoping maybe something like a training course would be beneficial to the clinical sites and beneficial to the students because they'll all be expected to do basically the same thing. I know the nursing programs do something very similar to this. I know there's other programs that in order to be a clinical site, you have to go through a clinical preceptor training. That's not something that we've ever implemented in the past, but if it's something that you feel would be beneficial, I would like to put that up for an option that we could maybe develop something and get that out to you. So we have a couple of options here. Option number one is, yes, I'd love to have a training course. It would be optional, of course. There would be a training course, and if you could do it online, just like maybe in a Canvas shell, which is the platform that our students use, would you be interested in that? So that's option number one. Option number two is, yes, but I'd like it printed out in a hard copy or a binder or some kind of book. Option number three is, yeah, that sounds good to me. Could we do it face to face and maybe offer a continuing education credit for, or a PACE credit for it? And option number four is, no, I really don't see a need to go to that effort to put one of those together. But some of the resources that we would have in our training course would be of course, the lab guidelines. A lot of our students are adult learners, and so there are some, I guess, tips and techniques that adult learners might benefit better from than your traditional student just out of high school. Tips and tricks on how to ask the right questions or a leading question instead of just watch me do this and then you do it as well. Is there something that we could help to do to help with the actual learning experience? So there are some options there. We are going to throw that. We're going to close out the clinical hour ones, bring in the training course for the clinical preceptor. So what's your opinion on that? Would you be interested in something on that? Is it something that we could, work together and develop? Are there certain things that you would like to have in a training program if we did, or a training course, something to that nature? Anything that you want to throw on there? Just get some feedback on that. I should hurry in. So it looks like we're getting a pretty good yes response. And maybe we throw all of it into, have it online, have a hard copy and do a face-to-face. It might be something we're just exploring having that option if you would be interested in it or be interested in participating in something like that. But it looks like we're at a majority of yes. So thank you. I think it would be awesome to be able to develop something like that with your help. So I'm gonna say that's a good response. And then the other thing I wanted to discuss, there's no vote on this, you're welcome, is the Grow Your Own. We're really showing a push for a career ladder and to have our on-the-job trained personnel in the laboratory become certified. Certifications are very important. They kind of set you apart from other people in your field, in the medical field, showing your dedication and commitment to knowledge and providing the best service. Professional credibility, increasing your earning potential. That was an interesting fact that they brought up at CLEC, was that certified MLTs are reporting a 25% higher salary than on the job trained staff. Of course, we all know how those salary surveys go. But it's definitely, I think, something that we as a program need to push for, not just because it's our program, but because of, I think we all know that there's kind of maybe a lack of respect for laboratory professionals. And I think the more professional that we can present ourselves, which includes certification, then the more we respect that we would get as professionals and hopefully increase wages and, the whole thing goes hand in hand. So, anyway, I did want to discuss that. You'll probably be receiving some information from me about growing your own certifications that are available for laboratory professions and how to go about the steps to go about becoming certified. If you have to put a plug in for the ASCLS member, the Kansas meeting is next week, and there's actually a presentation on career ladders for laboratory professions. So maybe I'll see you there. Lack of co-op sites and clinical rotation sites, especially for microbiology, that's nothing new. It doesn't seem to be getting any better. So I think it's something that we're going to have to just adapt to. And then the other thing that I wanted to throw out was the adaptability of students, their soft skills, academic integrity issues. I think our on-the-job trained laboratory professionals, some of our students do not see the need for a certification and already see themselves as knowing everything there is to know. We're hoping to change that belief as well. So there's some things that are coming up in our program through discussions in the courses and touching a little bit more on professionalism and soft skills and things in our courses. I hope that you will be noticing in the future. Okay, that was a lot and I'm doing good. All right, so there is a feedback program survey. Here's a QR code, an online link. I will be sending that link out along with the minutes and the recording. I always appreciate any feedback, whether it's something that we've discussed here in our advisory board meeting or anything else that you see going on in the lab or you feel like we need to address. That's a good place to put your comments, and everything is always anonymous. If you always feel free to reach out to me by email or call my phone. I'm available. I love visiting with clinical sites and preceptors. So don't ever hesitate to contact me. Our curriculum review guides are to be updated in the fall of 2024. We're going to have the same requirements. They're just going to be a little bit different looking. But right now we have a vote. Does the program content as reflected in our curriculum guide align with industry standards and expectations for employment? The curriculum guides are here. I don't know if I can open the one for MLT. Oh, it's a college file. I can't open it here. I can attach those. See how else I can get that pulled up. Sorry about that. There, I think that should open it. Okay, so here's our curriculum guide, our map. These are general education courses. This is the part that will be changing a little bit in the fall, just the looks of it, not really any of the requirements. We have to kind of keep these same requirements to be aligned with the other MLT programs in the state. College algebra, we're looking at more maybe doing stats, or instead of college algebra, or both. You know, like they can have, students can either have stats or they can have college algebra, but that would be about the only other thing to discuss. And then these are, of course, our courses that are required for the MLT program. So let's close the training course for preceptors and open up the poll to vote whether we are meeting our standards. Oh, heck, what did I do now? There we go. Does the program content align with industry standards and employment needs, expectations? So yes or no on that one. And then I'm going to turn it over while you're getting your vote in on that one. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kotis. I think she was able to join us.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay.
Better
Dr.
late than
Kotis.
never.
Yeah. No,
So I
love
guess
to have you. Love to have you.
my first thing that I would like to say is thank you so much. This is a great group, lots of heavy content today. And so I appreciate everybody attending and providing support and input, because we definitely couldn't do what we do without all of you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. As far as general college updates, probably one of the biggest things that we are looking forward to is we will have a new college president in July 1st. Dr. Marcus Garstecki will be joining us. He is coming from South Dakota. However, he has ties to Kansas. He started his collegiate career as the football coach at Dodge City, and then moved into vice president roles in a community college system in Nebraska, and then is in South Dakota now, but will be coming back to Kansas in July. So we look forward to having him and guide us as we move forward as a college. And then enrollment updates, I know Karen does the enrollment updates specifically to the program, but in the college world, enrollment has been a challenge for many, many institutions, and especially since the pandemic. And so I am happy to say we are staying at about a 9.9% increase in enrollment. So we are staying on the black side versus going into the red, but we hold our breath every day, hoping that we don't see drops in different classes that are upcoming that students have already enrolled in. But right now our enrollment is holding its own, and we are continuing to see a little bit of growth. So we hope that continues. I know Karen's program has grown greatly, so we are excited and we appreciate the support in sending students our way. So with that, I will stand for any questions that you might have college-wise. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Kotis. Okay, that's it. I am so close on time. I almost made it, but I, again, thank you. We couldn't do this program without you. We definitely appreciate every bit and all feedback that we get. And believe me, we've had, the instructors and I have many discussions on how we can make the program better, how we can make that more adaptable to our clinical sites, because without you, we'd be sunk. So, again, we appreciate everything that you do for our program and for our students. If you want to stay on, I think we can probably throw those polls back up if you didn't get a chance to look at them. If you have anything else to discuss, I'm on here for a while. Feel free to stay on. Otherwise, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll send out a recording and all of the minutes and everything probably within the next week. Well, maybe in the next week, but as soon as I can, I'll get them out to you. And then, again, just contact me if you ever need anything or have any challenges or questions or concerns or anything. So thank you and have a great day. Happy Lab Week this month. And if you're going to Salina next week, I'll see you there. So take care. Bye.
I actually cannot relaunch that bigger poll because it'll clear all the results if I launch it again. So just send us, a message or an email or something with your vote or your opinion, and
Okay.
we'll do it
Thank
that
you.
way. Okay.
Thanks, Sammy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
You bet. Thanks. I'm gonna bring Jessica in here. Hello, Jessica. Can you hear me? Hi, Jessica. We're just ending the meeting, but we did record it. So I will send all of the information to you. There's a couple of things that I could really use some feedback on and would appreciate your input on anything. So I'll get it all sent out to you as soon as I can. And if you have any concerns or questions or anything, just holler at me. Okay, so let's take the program content off.